Greetings. Welcome to In Conversation with Trevor, brought to you by Heart and Soul Broadcasting Services. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. Today I'm in conversation with Mache Edward Solomon Makoni, otherwise known as Ted Makoni, a pioneering Zimbabwean entrepreneur. If you enjoy this conversation, remember to subscribe, to like, and to share. Let's get down to some work. Ted Makoni, welcome to In Conversation with Trevor.
Thanks.
You know, when I finally decided that we need to sit down with you, a lot of beautiful memories came across my mind. And I was reminded of the beautiful days that you and I, and remember Shua Chimbwa?
Yes, the journalist.
Regis Nyamakanga.
Yes.
We would go to cocktail parties.
Yes.
You were already a pioneering businessman, and we would be having our drinks, and then in the middle of it all, you would then say, "Guys, gande panze chambonofuta. I want to smoke," and you'll take out your pipe, and you start smoking, and you'll tell us these amazing stories.
We called it a smoke
break. Do you still smoke, Ted?
No, given up.
Why?
It was by coincidence. Apparently, for your own information, I became a victim of COVID. And during the process of being cured and healing, I went to some doctor who, in fact, misdiagnosed. I can't remember what problem he was looking for. And when I asked him what had caused it, he said it's smoking. They said, "Really?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "From now on, I'm not smoking." That's how I stopped.
Wow. But you survived COVID, obviously.
Oh, yes.
Do you still drink?
Only occasionally. If I'm at a place where there's relaxation, but I will never drink just because there's a drink.
Right. Why the change?
Well, when I stopped the lagers, I carried on drinking occasionally whiskey, and that's what I go for.
Okay.
And it's not a question of drinking because it's there.
Yeah.
I've got to have the feeling that I think
I need a drink.
Yeah, or if I'm amongst friends who are also drinking and I feel I would like to. Not necessarily because I must.
That comes with maturity, isn't it? That's wisdom.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yes.
Ted, you represent an amazing crop of pioneering businessmen. And I'm going to run through those that I remember, and I want you to add a few names there. And for me, really having you here is partly a celebration of your generation.
Thanks.
Celebration of these amazing people who started businesses in the most difficult times.
Oh, yeah.
You were in business. I was reflecting, I think I've known you for 30 years, over 30 years.
That's much longer than that.
Yeah, much longer than that. And so the people that you represent to me are people like Paul Mkondo.
Yes.
The late Ben Mcheche.
Yes.
Paul Matambanazo. Job Kadengu.
Yes.
Who else do you remember within that group of you guys who started businesses in very difficult times? And at that time, by the way, Ted, most of you were limited to the retail stores. You're limited to running transport companies,
yes.
Farming in the old African purchase areas. Who do you remember in that group? that stands out for you?
Well, you have Josephat Lorenzo.
What is Josephat into?
He was in transport.
Transport.
He was in competition with the Matambanados.
Aha. What do you, when you look back, Ted,
Yes.
what explains, talk to us about starting your business. What challenges you encountered, what you overcame to finally, start your business, Muchira Butchery. That was
Yes.
was that your first business?
That was the first business.
Talk to me about how you started it.
Well, what you don't know is before I went into that business, what was I doing?
What were you doing? Shall we go there?
I was actually one of the pioneer blacks in telecommunications as a technician. So from school, 1962, I was I enrolled as an apprentice student under the what we call PTC now.
Post and Telecommunication Corporation.
It was at that time known as the GPO, General Post Office, which encompassed the postal services and telecoms. We're all under the one umbrella, GPO. Eventually it turned into PTC, which is what
now,
you...
Which is now TelOne, by the way. I think
that's
so.
Right, TelOne. Well, one of the bits of PTC, TelOne, there's
Net1,
and there's postals.
Yes.
Actually, just to while you are there, I eventually sat on the board for PTC.
Yes.
And we are the ones who recommended the split of these three. But let's go to my starting the business. I started business while I was working in PTC. The driving force was when I asked, in fact, I had lost my father, and I wanted to be transferred to either Rusapi or now Marondera. And my boss, the one I was working with, only wrote one word, provided I get a suitable replacement. Therefore, my transfer was declined. And I carried on. Then I decided, well, I better find my way out of this. A cousin of mine introduced me to the owner of a butchery which was called Fadza Moyo.
Where was this?
In Highfield, Chipis. Yeah. And I got started and the business started doing very well. But one thing you don't know, people don't know is actually my wife who started running this business. I stayed on working until 1978. And the business was now running. And then back to my desire to be transferred, I said, this is the time to leave these people. So I put in my letter of resignation. And the same boss again wrote, provided I get suitable replacement. But there were others above him who realized that they were losing an asset. He quickly came to me and said, can we transfer you for you to remain in the corporation? I said, no. My mind is made up.
I'm leaving.
And that's how I left. Then I started full-time running the business. This time, our business had grown from a butchery to a general dealer. So the two were running side by side.
Where was this?
In Machipisa
Shopping Center.
Yeah. My wife stayed running the butchery. I went into the retail.
Were they same place? The
same
retail
place,
and the butchery?
walking, in fact, on the same block.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was very easy supervise and communicate.
Talk to me, Ted, about how did you fund it? Did you fund it from your salary? Did you get a loan? How did you do it?
Self-funded. I had made a bit of saving.
From your salary?
From my salary, which I then paid a deposit to the seller. And in about 6 months' time, I'd paid him off.
From your salary? From
my salary. Because I told him I can't rely on the business. Therefore, I'm going to rely on my salary. So he accepted those terms, which I met without any problem.
Mm-hmm. So you pay him off in 6 months' time?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Then I was full-time.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife kept on running.
Mm-hmm.
For your own information, we didn't have an account, and all the sales were kept in the home until my wife...
You didn't have a bank account?
No, we didn't.
Why? Because the bank couldn't allow you to open, or what? Was it by choice?
The environment was not as welcome, but my wife decided there was enough money for us to now open an account.
Okay.
I said, well, go ahead and open the account. For your own information, my wife was better known at the bank than myself. She was the only signatory, and all the time that we ran businesses, I eventually became a signatory. And it was not a question of counter-signed signatures. Each one would sign on the account. And when I started running the retail shop, apparently...
The retail shop, was it also known as Muchira?
Muchira.
Was it also known as
This
Muchira?
one was now known as Muchira Cash and Carry. The butchery, Muchira Butchery. And this one was Muchira Cash and Carry. So the Muchira was the link. They all knew it was the same business. It did very well. So well that when we were running when my wife opened the account, I then was also required to be a signatory. And people said, who is this one?
What did you open an account with? Do you remember?
It was Barclays.
Barclays Bank.
Yeah, because they had a branch at Machipisa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then there came a time when I wanted to borrow some money. They didn't want to hear of me. Wow. And when I resigned, I had a pension which was not yet mature, but whatever was there, I said, give it to me. That's what I injected into the business to finance my operations. And after some number of, I think it was now during independence, in the 1980s, my landlord for the general dealer,
Cash and Carry,
yeah, had a shop in Mufakos. And he liked me very much. So he offered me that shop and I gladly accepted it. And that was the springboard into business, very seriously. It was also the time when the council advertised for a free stand in Warren Park. I submitted my application. I was in competition with, talking about the other business people, Boca.
Ah, right. Roger Boca.
And I applied for this, and for some unknown reasons, our applications were declined, all of us. I then personally wrote a letter complaining why I had been treated the same as Woolworths. Forget the other big names that had applied.
And they'd gotten the land.
And, and compared to myself, I'm only, renting premises. Why should I be treated the same? Well, they told me that we were going to re-advertise.
Mm-hmm.
When it was re-advertised, I applied.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't have enough money to justify me getting the stand. And you know who came to my aid?
Mm-hmm.
Paul Mkondo.
Hmm.
He gave...
What did he used to say? Upenyu wako idambuziro moyo wangu.
It was before he really got full time into
insurance.
He was, but not as big as he then was. So he gave me his balance sheet to submit with my application. That's how I got that stand.
Otherwise, you're not going to get the stand.
I wasn't. Then we came to a stage where the city were finally going to give me the stand, and they advertised in order to make sure there are no objections. And you know who objected me? It was Boka.
Roger Boko objected?
Yeah. But he messed it up. He didn't know the Makoni that he was dealing with. He knew of the Makonis, but not me. So he had a Makoni who is much older than me, older than him, and he wrote his objection to the meeting, to the council. And when I went into the meeting where I was supposed to be interviewed, I had Musariri, what's the first name?
Sorry, I can't remember his name now. Yeah.
He was a councillor. So he advised me to look for a lawyer in order to defend me against Boka. And I said, I don't need a lawyer. Why should I pay money for nothing? I'm able to speak for myself. I know what I want. I know what I am. And guess what? That's what really helped me get that stand. When I was invited into the council meeting, the councillors were looking for a gray-haired person, which I was not.
How old were you then? Do you remember?
I was in my 30s.
So you pitch up in front of council?
Pitch up. And they say, is this the Makoni you are talking about? And the chairman said, yes. Are you sure? See, what had happened is the councillors, the black councillors who were in this committee, had picked the white guys to ask me difficult questions. But having seen that this is not the Makoni they were expecting.
Which Makoni were they expecting?
Boka had the Makoni who was at Chitungweza. That's his first name now. The one he was popularly known in.
Yeah.
And my uncle,
who
was much older than me, and many other Makonis that he knew. But
not you.
Not this one. So not a single question was asked. And the African guys who were expecting to get the whites to lead the
attack,
they lost the battle. And the chairman said, you can go away, Mr. Makoni. In the meantime, I had prepared notes what to say and what to defend. I never did.
Never did need to defend yourself.
It was just my face and the reality that I'm not the person that is being talked about. Then I got that stand.
Then you got that stand. I'm going to stop you there. We're going to take a 20-minute a break, rather. Please don't go away. From that stand, let's find out what Ted then did with that stand. So see you on the other side.
It was a time where if I was not careful, I would have gone on to borrow people using my good name
Welcome back to our conversation with Ted Makoni, one of Zimbabwe's pioneering entrepreneurs. Ted, when we started, I didn't mention all your names: Mache Edward Solomon Makoni, otherwise known as Ted. What's the significance of Mache?
Mache is because of problems that occurred between my father and mother. I'm the firstborn by survival. Otherwise, my father and mother lost 4 children before me. And when I was born, it was significant of the graves that my father and mother had because of stones that I used there. A sekuru of mine said he will be called a Mache. Edward was a name that apparently was given to me by a nursing sister at what's this hospital at Pararenyatwa before.
Is that where you were born?
Yeah. And she named me Edward, but I had an uncle who is called Edward, a cousin who is called Edward. My mother tried to object. Poor lady did not succeed.
And Solomon?
Solomon was because of this Edward that my mother was fighting against the name. When I was at the Dia Mission, a friend of mine wrote me a letter. And the old man opened my letter because he thought it was his. But I don't think he thought it was. He was trying to look for whatever. And I didn't like that. So I then took my father's name as my second name. That's how the Solomon
comes in.
And then Makoni, of course, is the family name.
Yeah. So you were born...
Let's get to the Ted.
Yeah.
Right.
Ted.
Now, when I joined the chamber and I was on the executive, there were 2 Edwards on the same executive committee. So the one was called Ed. And they said, do you mind if we call you Ted? I said, no problem. That was the origin of Ted Makoni, which became the more popular name.
That's what we know you as.
It's a brand, in fact.
It's a brand.
But that's how it came.
So, Ted, let's go to... You were born in Harare. Which schools did you go to?
I did my standard as sub A and B at my home school in Doha, where my father eventually bought a farm. And I did my sub A up to standard 3. Then I went to Norway Mission, where I did my standard 4 up to standard 7. From there, I went to the Dia Mission, where I did my Form 1 and 2. And I landed up at the Matopo Mission, where I did my Form 3 and 4.
And that's where...
I was supposed to... In fact, I had a place at Grumonzi for Form 6. But my father, as I could see, I didn't see him being able to manage paying the fees. I actually disappointed him. He wanted me to proceed. And I said, no, you don't have the money. And reluctantly, he allowed me to then join PTC. As a technician. And interestingly, about at the second term after I had started being at PTC, the old man could not afford the fees for my siblings.
So you're right after all.
That's what it amounted to. So he came to me. He wanted some funds. I said, why? He says, andichina mari. But kuyangu yamaida kundipa yakaenda kupi. He couldn't answer me. So I sent him back home without a cent. A week later, I then went back home and gave him the school fees.
But why did you send him back home without the money?
No, I wanted him to realize that he had made a grave mistake because it was a serious quarrel between his father and son.
You wanted to go to...
I had already been accepted as an apprentice at PTC. But he didn't realize that.
So you then started helping him pay fees for your siblings?
In fact, from there on, I started paying for all my siblings. And he had to look for other things. But all the fees were now my responsibility.
Becoming the stone.
Oh, yeah.
The stone, becoming the foundation for the family.
That's right, yeah. And
so when we took a break, you had just confounded these people, the black people and the white guys, trying to stop you getting the stand. You finally got that stand. What then happened with the stand?
Well, I then started developing it from my own resources.
Yeah.
Up to a point where I had a farm which I sold in order to get liquidity to complete the shop.
So most of your business up to now is self-funded. You're buying things from pension, from your salary, from your savings. No bank loan?
No.
Why?
Well, this is where racialism was really expressed in silence. You made an application, it would never succeed.
And you were never told why?
The application is declined.
I like the long silence. The application is declined.
Yeah. And until I got to this banker, the manager at Zimbank, whom I was introduced by Mike Chidziwa, who appreciated what I had done from my own resources. And he gave me 75,000 overdraft. I then used some of that to complete what was outstanding on the building. And I remember exactly on the 6th of October, 1986, that's when I opened my supermarket.
And what was the name of the supermarket?
I
Is
called,
it still Muchira Cash and Carry?
No, but
What is it
Muchira was always there.
Yeah.
I called it Muchira Hypermarket. I didn't like the name supermarket, so I called it Muchira Hypermarket.
Where was it located, by the reminders?
Warren Park 1, yeah. And it boomed. In fact, the one good thing is when I was trading before moving to Warren Park, I had a good record with manufacturers and did most of my purchases for my shops through the manufacturers.
Take us through some of the manufacturers. Do you remember them?
Oh, yes. Blue Ribbon.
Blue Ribbons.
National Foods. National Breweries. Olivin. Those are were the major.
The major.
Yeah, I had accounts with all those shops. And
what do you think explains your success? You say it boomed. What do you think explains?
When I got started, remember this 75,000
overdraft.
I went back to the suppliers. Said because I had actually been out of business for 18 months, but with my accounts all paid up. So I went back and said, I now want to reopen my accounts. And all of them were reopened. Victoria Foods is one of them. Lever Brothers. All those accounts were reopened. And I never really used the overdraft.
The manufacturers were now funded
funded my business. I think the one message that I would like people to learn is you want to be credible in running a business. If you lack that
integrity, credibility,
you'll never make it. Because imagine after 18 months being out of business and go there the next day, they all opened their accounts.
Why had you gone out of business, by the way? Why had you stopped?
Well, I didn't have even enough working capital to
store up.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I sold those businesses, plowed it into the building. Still, I did not finish the business until I got this overdraft. That was my savior.
Wow.
And coming to the chamber, I was already on the executive. I was already known as Ted. But because of this 18 months out of business, I was intending to actually resign from the executive.
Because things were tough.
Yeah. So one of these...
What lessons did you learn from that tough season in your life? Those 18 months that you were out of business. What lessons can you share with the viewers?
I think the lessons that I would like people to learn is you survive on the least that you can. It was a time where if I was not careful, I would have gone on to borrow people using my good name and put myself in worse debt. But I never did that. Lucky enough, I was able to continue sending my children to school. They were in boarding schools. I was able to do that. And in fact, by the time the business was booming, I never felt any change.
Because you were disciplined in your lifestyle.
That's right. And I think that is very important in business. Don't carry yourself too high. I know of some young men, I don't want you to take, I will not mention their name. I'll tell you.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. I interacted with them, but I'll tell you when we have a break.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, to me, I think that's the lesson that I like people to learn. Learn to survive on what is affordable. Don't try and pretend to be what you are not. Yeah, because it's easier to patch yourself up on top of a hill, but coming down may be difficult. If you are not careful, you crash.
So you then get into this consortium with 7 other entrepreneurs. Was it six or seven? To create the Food Chain Group.
Food Chain Group.
Talk to us about that.
Right. I was actually approached by somebody from SPA. Somehow they saw me as a very difficult person to talk to. I don't know why.
Clearly they didn't know you, because some of us were drinking and smoking with you.
So they sent somebody specially to come and talk to me from SPA and see if I can join their franchise. After I listened to him and said, well, let me think about it. Eventually I said, fine, I'll do that.
Yeah.
So I joined SPA. We did quite well in SPA, but there came a time when SPA started operating corporate shops. They were paying more attention to corporate shops and making life difficult for
franchise holders.
And with my other guys, we decided either we become shareholders into the corporate shop. If not, then let's pull out. So we approached management at SPA and said, we want shares into the corporate shops. And they just didn't want to.
What year was this, Ted? 2002?
About 2000. No, it was before. Yeah, it was 2000. It was 2002, Gono came into being. So we decided we were pulling out. So in block, we left Spa, and Spa nearly crashed. They had to really look for a way to keep on running. And we approached the suppliers. Again, the good name
carried you.
Yeah. Of all my other friends, none had a better record with suppliers than myself. So it was my accounts that we used to open accounts for FCG. And we started running FCG eventually.
How many shops did you take into the food chain group? Do you remember?
By that time, I had one when I went into, and sorry, in food chain group.
Yeah.
It was 3 because in the meantime, while I was in Spa, I opened an outlet at Rodsville, and I opened the first 24-hour service shop in town. I turned it into a 24-hour outlet, and it was booming. In fact, you want to know when I opened it?
Yes.
After I had made all the preparations, I decided I was going to open at odd hours in order to be able to manage the traffic that may come in.
Wow.
So being a 24-hour service, I opened that outlet at 12 o'clock midnight. And the traffic that came in there was unmanageable. My till operators were so shocked they couldn't operate.
So it was a good idea after all.
It was.
Yeah.
Eventually, we had to close the doors, get the guys to settle down, take care of the traffic that was already in the shop. And from there, we started operating.
Ted, we'll take another break here. So when we come back, don't go away. We're going to go to the period when Ted becomes the president of the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce and look at what he did when he was with ZNCC. So see you on the other side.
That was our winning ticket because that was a service to the members.
Greetings. My name is Trevor Ncube, host of In Conversation with Trevor, Zimbabwe's most engaging conversational show. I go beyond the headlines and beyond the sensational. We've brought before your screens change makers from arts, business, and politics, and from the region. Please join our growing community of viewers. Subscribe, like, and share. Welcome back to our conversation with Ted Makoni, one of Zimbabwe's pioneering Black entrepreneurs. So Ted, you then became the president of the Zimbabwe National Chamber of Commerce from 1994 to 1996.
Right.
What were the highlights of your tenure as president of ZNCC? Do you remember?
The highlights, the first one was just as I was taking the office, IBDC were coming into the
Indigenous Business Development Center.
Right. And their aim was to challenge ZNCC by taking all the businesses, black businesses, into their fold. So I remember one of the days, somebody, I can't remember his name, phoning me and inviting me to come to IBDC. In fact, they wanted me to come and be president. I said, there's no way I can come there. You people, if you really want to survive, you want to call yourself a pressure group within the chamber, but not outside.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to survive, come into the chamber and then fight from within.
Right.
And they didn't listen to me. In the meantime, Strive Masiwa became the leading guy. But on my part, I made sure I don't go to war with them, but I'll make sure that the chamber provides services to the chamber, to the members.
Mhm.
We started an operation where we would get my shops, leading shops, to give special accounts to ZNCC members.
Mhm.
That was our winning ticket, because that was a service to the members, which was not there before then. And
Was ZNCC seen as a white organization or a black organization? Just help jog our memories there.
It was seen as a white organization, but again, we played our cards very well. To the blacks who were already in the executive committee, we had our own private meetings where we decided how to make the chamber leadership black.
Mhm.
And that's when we had Gabriel Shamu, followed by Phil Jumbe, followed by, then I came in.
Mhm.
We had actually worked out a formula where the three of us would follow each other.
Mm.
And we also got the white members who were non-racial. They supported the idea because they realized that in the long run, they needed blacks in order for the chamber to be accepted.
Mhm.
And prior to that as well, it was very difficult to get a hearing with government. And during my term, we started opening our avenues into government. Yeah.
Mm. What were the main problems that the chamber was dealing with? Do you remember?
Well, we had problems like the price controls, minimum wages. Those were the major ones which we dealt with until we managed to get the government to hold back instead of taking a leading role in as if they were supervising businesses. And I recall very well when I had a meeting with RG Mugabe. I had tried to get to meet him through his ministers, and instead they were blocking me. But I was already on the PTC board. And one of these days, that's when we commissioned the Causeway Post Office. And I was vice chairman of PTC board then. And my chairman was away, and I was actually the acting chairman. So I took an opportunity to meet Mugabe. I had met him before, and he had referred me to his ministers. And I told him, I've met all these ministers. And he called one of his henchmen. He says, I want to see this man in a week's time.
But you had met the ministers. The ministers had blocked you.
Well, because they had not opened the way for me.
Yeah, and the issues that you were raising, do you remember what were those issues?
The first thing that was for Mugabe to appreciate that we were not
enemies of the state,
white
owned.
Yeah. We have whites, yes, but instead whites are actually under us.
Because you're being branded as...
That's right. And I was in competition with IBDC, who were driving the same message that, these are white men's boys. So when I met Mugabe, in fact, it was interesting in that after he told this guy to arrange a meeting for me, his minister, I will not mention the name, in fact, was told that I'm meeting the president of the ZNCC. So he had to come to that meeting. And when I made my presentation, after I spoke about the chamber and what we were doing, and I said, we are very much into training people in business before we can talk of money. Yes, we need money, but we need to train people, and we run training courses. And at the end of my presentation, he said, for the first time, I've understood what you people are. And if anything, you really need our support. And from there, the chamber were invited into all sorts of farm meetings, budget meetings, what have you. And I had also, at one time, approached the secretary of cabinet, of a member of parliament, secretary of parliament. Yeah. And I approached them and said, "Now, look, you people not taurirwa figures of all sorts of things in zero. Do you know what those figures mean?" He said, "No." I said, "I have a committee in finance and economy committee. So the budget is that they had just been read. So we went and saw them. They said, now, here is the budget. What does it mean to you?" And none had an idea. So we talked to them through the budget.
The national budget.
The national budget, yeah.
The one that Chidzero had presented.
Yes. And that, in fact, led to the Secretary of Parliament giving us an office at Parliament House, where we had a liaison guy who used to sit in the House of Parliament with an office there. That helped the chamber's image.
I would have thought, Ted, that your competition was CZI, no?
No, not CZI were not in competition as such.
But this was big business.
No. CZI was focused on manufacturers.
Right.
But ZNCC was focused on manufacturers as well as retailers. So we actually had a bigger membership than CZI.
So why was IBDC perceived as competition for you?
Well, because we went even into the rural areas. We had branches
all over.
All over, yeah. So
and IBDC was going for those members of yours.
Yeah, but unfortunately, they were telling people they will be able to give them monies.
People were now wanting to cross over.
Yeah, but they never got the money anyway. Money was for the leadership who used the membership to support their cause.
Do you think their cause? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought that IBDC was saying, let's support black business men to break in, to come into the market rather, through funding, through the market, government giving them support and that kind of stuff. How was that perceived as a threat by the chamber?
Well, to us, we never really fought them. But instead, we were telling them that the way they are going, promising people to get funds and so on, they will never get funds from government. And very soon, those people will not want to follow them, which in fact turned out to be the truth. And in the end, it was only the big ones who were able to get money from the banks, using the impression that they were like leaders of the bigger groups. And
the problem, not the problem, but the issue that I had with IBDC was to say, you guys, the chamber, people like you, people like Ted, people like the Mkondos, had succeeded in a very difficult environment.
Yes.
And we are in a country that is run by a black government, majority black. And we are fighting, we're now finding ourselves in a position where we're saying, you need to give particular attention to the indigenous businesses. For me, that's where I found that couldn't this have been done in a different kind of way? Because like you said, it turned out that the people that benefited were the people that were at the top.
Well, in fact, our thrust was to encourage the banks to be more user-friendly. And if you recall, this is the time when the banks formed what they call the small business units. It was a reaction to
that pressure.
And I recall having a meeting with some junior members of the banks at Jameson Hotel. They invited me there, and we were discussing on how to assist the blacks. And they said, we have got a small units business. I said, those things will not last because you reacted to the pressure. You are not the ones who had the idea of how you can run small businesses and then come up with a formula that works. Yours was to sort of ward off the pressure that you are on.
Knee-jerk reaction.
That's right. And in fact, they didn't last. I don't think they even lasted for more than a year. Those units collapsed.
Ted, let's go to what you're doing now. Plot 8, Headlands, Muchira Development Plan. That's a big project. Just in a nutshell, what are you trying to do?
I'm trying to do farming, but I intend to use that as a base for my family. I'm no longer young enough to be running around. I am focusing on livestock, which is less demanding. But
in partnership with your son, hey?
Yeah.
Okay.
And once I get that started, I mean, in fact, it is now started.
Okay.
It's running. We are breeding the stock that I would like to make sure it's the driving force for the business.
So what is that? Are you into? Is it beef? What stock are you looking at?
I'm looking at, in fact, supplying heifers into the market.
All right.
That's what I like to do. In fact, I would like to compete. There's a neighboring white who does that. Stabs. That's where I bought my initial stock.
Okay.
And I'm breeding my own.
This is in Headlands.
In Headlands, yeah.
Okay.
And so once I get to 60 breeders, all the heifers I'll be selling, be supplying the market, and the steers I'll be selling into the butcheries. And hopefully my sons will take an interest into running the
business.
Not only that, including the farming itself, because I believe they need to have that for the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ted, it's been amazing talking to you. When you look at your life, Ted, I mean, like I said when we started, for me, you represent this amazing group of people who, under the most difficult conditions, fought hard and built great businesses. When you look back at your life, are there painful moments in your life where you think you could share lessons with our viewers?
I think painful moments come in the sense that if you are going to do it in business, you want to be in a position not to rely on outside forces.
Mm.
Because there will be a tendency to influence you in a manner that you can't resist because you are already committed.
You're compromised.
Yeah. So I would not advise anybody, difficult as things may be, to put yourself in a position where you can't make decisions, painful as they may be. But because you have done certain things, it's difficult to
act independently.
That's right.
Somebody's got you by.
And once you are so compromised, you don't have any way out. So one should always avoid a situation where, yes, you may need help, but it's help that is useful to you. But without compromising.
Strings attached.
That's right.
Yeah.
One should avoid all that
at all costs. Ted, it's been amazing talking to you. Thank you so much. Like I said, you represent an amazing generation, a generation that inspired a lot of us to get into business. So we're watching you from the terraces. Like I said, fond memories of our smoking breaks. So Ted, thank you so much, and wish you all the very best with the project that you're working on now with your sons. Wish you all the very best. So thank you so much for coming. Remain seated there, Ted. Allow me to thank the viewers who are out there who follow us on a weekly basis. Remember, we are a weekly show. We are out every Monday, 7 a.m. Central African time. And to ensure that you don't miss out on any of these quality conversations, I invite you to click on this subscribe button, like, and share. Remember, we've gone a step further. We've put all our content on our website and put podcasts on that website for your listening pleasure. All our content sits there, videos and podcasts. Thank you for watching. Until next time, cheers to you all.